Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of this mini series on self preparation. And we have already uploaded quite a few episodes, and now this episode is about all about optional subjects. So one of the major debates when it comes to UPSC preparation and the whole process is how to select the optional subject. Now, let us in this episode will focus solely on optional subject and all aspects of it, and hope this video will help you to finalize and to lay down the groundwork of choosing the optional. So let's start with what exactly is this optional subject. So many people who are very new to this UPSC preparation, for them in the mains exam, which is the written exam and has several papers like general studies, there are so many papers, then there's ethics, then there is essay, language papers are there. So there you have to choose one subject as optional subject. Now, previously there were two optional subjects, but for the last so many years only UPSC have now decided to go with one optional subject. So you have to choose one optional subject in the mains exam, and there will be written exam for that. It is not applicable in the preliminary stage of the exam. As you know, the preliminary exam is an objective type exam, and that has two papers, one on the general studies and one on the CSAT, which is English and mathematics and general mental ability and stuff like that. So there is no real role of this optional subject. So optional subject will come into feature in the mains examination, where there will be paper 1, paper 2, and then also in the interview there are possibilities, because they will see what your optional is, and the interviewers may ask some question relating to your optional subject. So this subject is essentially a part of your main examination. So I hope that is clear. Now already we have discussed which subject you can choose. For that there's a long list. You can go to the UPSC website and find out almost all the subjects which are there, all the graduation subjects which are there. For example, in arts side it can be public administration, sociology, psychology, philosophy. Engineering also options are available: mechanical engineering, this engineering, that engineering, and mathematics is also available, and there are so many. Physics is also, almost all the subjects are available. So from this list of subjects you can see in the UPSC website, or a simple Google search will also work. So almost all the subjects, also account subjects, are available. So it is there for everyone. Everyone can get their choice of optional subject there. So now you know that there is a subject to be taken, and almost all the subjects are available in that list. So now, before going into how we select this option, because it has a considerable impact on your main score, so it is very important. So choosing the right optional is one of the key decisions in the process of preparation for UPSC. So now, before we go to how to select, let us first talk about how not to. So this is also very interesting observations which have been seen when I was part of a coaching class in Delhi while preparing. So I got to interact with many students. In these 2 years of preparation, I came across so many students who were preparing with different optional subjects. So after interacting, we got a lot of insight on that. So what was seen was people generally they go for these are the reasons which should not be the reasons, but are seen as reasons in selection of the optional subject. So now one of the common reasons is that I have graduated into one subject. Suppose I have graduated into BSc with mathematics I have done, and also I have done masters in mathematics. So now mathematics is my thing and I am expert in it. So why not choose the optional which I am already an expert in? Maybe I don't like it, that is something which may differ, But then, I am an expert in it. I have done decently in my graduation and I have done decently in my post graduation as well. So I think I can manage. So this is one common feeling that, okay, whatever graduation I have done, let us go ahead with that. But here I want to caution you that you must see the exam pattern as well. For example, maths, since I have not seen the papers, I will not comment, and since it's not my grad subject, I will not comment on that. But for example, public administration. Now, if you have studied public administration from IGNOU or distance education or from a proper university, when you see the papers, previous year's papers of UPSC, you will find there is a huge change, huge difference between what you can say in the IGNOU question papers or any other question papers of public administration, which are more theoretical. And then when it comes to UPSC, nowadays it is becoming more and more applied. So there is a sea of difference, I think, when it comes to public administration. And mostly it is there with others too. So that is why blindly just assuming that since I have graduated in this subject, I should take it without any further research, that is not a wise step. I'm not saying you should not go for it. Of course, it will help if you have graduated in one subject. If you want to take it as an optional subject, obviously it is going to help you and it will reduce the preparation time and you will be more comfortable. But just before taking that decision, just go and look at the question papers. What is the pattern? How are the questions coming? Are you comfortable with that pattern? Can you score in that kind of pattern and that kind of a question? Will it be easy for you to deal with that without any help? Because one of the major things when it comes to graduation subjects, so suppose you choose some engineering subject. Now, if you want any help in that regard, it is difficult to get that because not many people take those subjects. Those are very rare subjects to be taken as an optional. So you will not find content on it. Finding books will be difficult. Finding the solved papers will be difficult, so on and so forth. So essentially, when you are making that decision, you have to see all these factors as well: the availability of the material, the availability of online content, the availability of guidance, the availability of solved papers, etc., etc. Please consider all these things before you go and pick your graduation subject as your optional subject. So that is one. Now another common pattern which is seen is people go with trends. For example, those who are doing the preparation right now, they will see that what kind of optional subjects are trending. As in, right now, what is in vogue, what is in fashion, people are taking what is giving more marks. So that kind of analysis also people do, and they go with the pattern. So, for example, when I was preparing that time, geography was one of the favorite subjects to be taken by people, and it was giving good marks as well. Geography and of course public administration. So that was the combo when the two optionals were there. So this was the very common combo other than public administration and sociology. So now you have only one option. So this is also one thing which we should not follow blindly. Of course, we can look into the trends, we can do the analysis, we can see the possibilities, we can research into how good we are in that particular optional. So all those things. Just take into consideration all these features, but don't blindly go with one of the features while deciding your optional. That is the whole point being mentioned here. Now, another, there are many reasons how you should not select your optional. I've just taken a few for discussion. So another is the optional being very short and the syllabus being very small. So this is also, I have seen a lot of people taking sociology. Why? Because the optional is very small. It can be studied or managed is the more appropriate word. It can be managed in 3 months, 4 months time, and the pattern of paper is also more or less the same. kind of questions come, so it's easy to deal with. It's very easy to get average mark, so and so forth. So this also should not be really a criteria of selecting optional subject, because things may change, the pattern may change, the trend may change, the kind of questions which are coming may change, and overall the bottom line is you may not have the flavor for that particular subject. So now there are many other reasons in coaching. We are influenced when, of course, this is a self preparation series, but those who study in coaching or those who are preparing together, they just take the optional what their friends are taking. So this is also one common mistake. Just because your friends are taking that particular optional, you should not. It's not basically this whole thing should not be influenced by others, because they have their own criteria. So you should master this whole mentality of taking as a group. That will not be really helpful, because you really need to have flavor for that particular subject. So how not to select, I hope that is the point here is clear, how not to go with particular optionals. Of course, these are all things you can study and you can consider, and eventually that decision has to come from within. So that is the point I want to mention. Now, how to select optional, it's much like love. It's where you don't select love, right? I mean, it happens, you get a feeling that okay, this is the person, this is the companion you want for your life. So it's very similar to that optional subject. I would say that feeling should come from within. It so happens that when you read some subjects, you feel very interested, very intrigued by the whole syllabus of it, the whole approach of it. Whatever you are learning, the new knowledge you are gaining, the analysis which is there. So all these things, you simply fall in love with that subject, and you want to read more and more. More is not enough for you. You keep on, you take new books and you finish, you read other authors also which are not recommended even in the book list. You try to read them as well. So if you feel that way for a particular subject, then that is the subject for you. And of course, you should consider all other factors like what is the trend, how big is it, and basically look at the question papers and consider everything. You can see the standard answers, who has taken. You can go and talk to them as well. So do your analysis, but eventually it is the bottom line comes here only, that it should come from within. Nobody. You should not select a video, optional based on this video. I am not going to recommend any optional for you in this basically video. I never do. I have taken so many career counseling workshops on UPSC, and also when I was a part of that coaching, people asked me which optional should we take. So bottom line is, the answer should come from within you, and you do your research, and then whatever your heart tells you, you go with that. So I hope that is clear. I'll talk about my options. So this is also to make you understand why I chose that. So my optional was public administration, and why I chose that, it is a long story. When I was still working in Deloitte, I decided that is not something which is giving me any kind of work satisfaction, and then eventually I wanted to be a part of the whole government machinery and work in the management or administration. So I started reading about, while I was working in a private sector after my graduation, I started reading about public administration, the books. It was not even a preparation for UPSC per se, but just out of interest, I started reading about it. I read a lot, and then I read about the government, how it functions, and from that came the real interest. I came to know much about civil services, and then it was then that I decided that okay, this is the thing for me. So now for me, the journey of UPSC started with reading about public administration and falling in love with public administration and wanting to know more about public administration. So that is how I decided that, of course, that time I didn't even know that you have to take optional subjects. So I was just reading out of interest. And when I went to Delhi and when I saw the pattern and then you have to select the optionals and all that, so I immediately, it was a no-brainer for me, and it came from within. As I said, it was already there, and that is how I took public administration. So while preparing, since I am a BTech from IIT Kharagpur engineer, so I had no idea how to write these answers and what is this art subject. So I decided while I am preparing, may as well do my MA in public administration. So I joined this IGNOU distance education course where you have to only submit the assignments and give the exam. So basically, in those 2 years, while I was preparing, I also completed my masters in public administration, and that is how I got more knowledge about the subject as well. Now, it is very, as I have already discussed, this is a stark difference between the paper of IGNOU in the MA of public administration and the UPSC optional. But anyway, it gave me a degree and then also a lot of other information which is usually not there in some of the standard books which are recommended for public administration. So all in all, it was a good decision, and I feel if you are taking an optional, if you are in this condition where you have your graduation is something else and you are taking something else because you like that subject, so meanwhile you are preparing for it, it is a good idea to do the masters in distance education, because it will further, it is giving you a degree because while you are preparing you are not doing it, so you can justify that period also on your resume. It's very important, and also you get additional information. So that is what was my optional and why. So I thought just if I explain this part also, it will give clarity to several people who are facing the same situation. So moving on to the next point about optional is, what is the right time for preparing for optional, and should it be prepared with GS or separately, or before that or after that? So there's a lot of confusion. So my personal opinion, and it is a personal opinion, that first we should study GS, and I have talked about this in the previous videos and streams also, that when you start with GS, because what is GS? GS is history, GS is geography, GS is economics, GS is administration, everything, little bit of everything. So when you read GS, you get a fair idea of what these facets are different. What is history like? What are the questions in history like? What are the questions in economics like? What exactly do I have to study in geography? So you get a little bit of idea of all these subjects, and then you can discover and then you can really ponder upon, so which component of GS you are really inclined to, where you want to read more, where you want to do more research, where you want to learn more. So basically you eventually end up deciding it will help you to decide your optional. So when you know a little bit of everything, then you have a fair idea of which side you are inclined to. So that is why I would suggest that first you prepare your GS, so first you do your basic GS preparation, and it is then in the whole process you will get clarity on what optional you want to take, and then based on that you select your optional, and then you prepare your optional. While you are preparing for optional, of course, you will have to, I would say that you focus on the optional, but because you are preparing for UPSC, every day you will have to read current affairs, every day you will have to read newspapers, so you will have to be in touch with GS anyway, but the static part of GS you can leave it because you have already prepared for it. So I would say the standard order for preparation is, of course, the day you decide to prepare for UPSC, you have to start, every day you have to do current affairs. There is no compromise on that. Every day you have to brush up on what's happening around the world and in India. So that part is there to be done, and there are so many other things also you have to simultaneously do. But once you are done with the GS static part, then you can decide on the optional, take the optional, study the optional, maybe it will take 5 months, 6 months, whatever, and then complete the optional, and then your everything is done. Your GS is done, your optional is done. Then you continue reading about general studies, and then you continue your incremental preparation. So that is the standard flow of preparation which has to be there for UPSC. Now moving on, let's say you have decided the optional, you have already completed your GS preparation. Now you have decided, and then now what to do. Now of course this is a self preparation module, so every subject, every optional subject has a standard book list which is out there. And for example, public administration, there are so many people who have done really well in the optional, and they have in their blogs or on their websites, on their interviews on YouTube, they have shared and the book list, basically what they have read in the standard book list. For example, like GS, we talked about a standard book list. Okay, for history you have to read this and that. So similarly, for every optional, there is a standard book list is there, which you can get online anywhere, or you can approach those who have already prepared and cleared using that optional. So that is a good idea to do, because it's really the first hand information you will get directly, and that will be much more reliable than a random Google search. So book list you can get from anyone who has already cleared. Then you also, this I have already discussed, that question papers are very important. So you go through the last 5 years question papers of that particular optional. Once you have done the basic preparation, then you start writing these questions. Now answer writing is very, very important. So in optional subject, one answer every day, like we talked about in GS also, one answer every day. So based on these question papers, try out these answer writing, one answer every day. And then once you cover all the question papers, especially for the last 5 years, and also you have covered the standard book list also, so now as you are essentially on a basic level, you are ready for the optional. And then you can do a incremental preparation. Like incremental preparation, keep on finding new resource material, new books, maybe more authors on the optional subject, and that is how you do the incremental preparation. So now, having done this incremental preparation, you have already prepared for GS, now you have prepared for optional subject as well. So now what happens is your basic preparation for UPSC is done. So now what is advised is incremental preparation. Incremental preparation, wherever you see there are gaps. For example, in the last prelims exam, you have not scored particularly well in history. So your history is weak. You have never liked history, but the reality, the fact is that history is a part of especially in the prelims. And sometimes essay also may come on that topic. So you may want to improve your history. In optional, maybe in the last attempt, you scored way below the average in paper 2 of the optional. So that is the area where you have to improve. So in the incremental preparation mode, you have to see basically where you need to improve. So that should be the approach, and you can also simultaneously, once you're done with the basic preparation, the incremental preparation can be done in 3-4 hours. If you dedicate 100% of yourself for that 3-4 hours, you can do those incremental preparation, and which means that you can also take up some job and do the incremental preparation. For this, many people who get confused that whether it can be done by a job along with a job UPSC preparation. Several people have done it, and I have made a separate video on this also, so please check out that video as well. Now, one last point I want to discuss about optional is that this switching of optional. So many people who realize after giving an attempt that this optional is not for them, and they then change the optional in the next attempt, and then they change it again. So all this is not a very good idea. Of course, there are brilliant people out there, so it may work for some people that they are so brilliant that they can take another one and master it within 2 3 months and then score well in the mains examination. But that's not a common trend which one can see. And my idea would be, if you are confused with your optional, even after all this, even after all the GS reading and things, you are still confused, try test series. Try writing test series. Now there are online test series also, and if you are in a city where there are test series are there, then you should try those test series. And if you feel you're not getting the marks as what per your requirement and you're not happy, you can do that before actually giving the attempt, because when you are in the cycle, things are very tight. You must understand this. Once that cycle of UPSC start, it's very difficult to change things, because the one moment you're giving the mains, one moment you're giving interview, and unfortunately if you don't make it through, again the next cycle starts so soon. I mean, just after the interview, there's no break. You have to start preparing for the next prelims. And this current affairs thing is a continuous thing. Every day you have to dedicate at least 1 hour, 2 hours for this current affairs thing. So once you get into the actual UPSC writing mode, it can be very tricky switching the subject at the last moment during your actually giving the attempts, during your basically UPSC cycles. So I would suggest that you should, if you are still not sure, then before giving the attempt, please try to write some test series. It will give you more clarity, and get your answers checked by peer group, by study circles, by experts. And if it's not working out, you can do that before actually starting your attempts. So this is all about the optional subject, and I hope this video helps and removes the confusion for many people who get stuck up with, they cannot decide what optional to take. So the whole crux of it, I would say, is that it is like much like love, as I have said before. And please listen to your heart and take the subject which you really love, and you can read a lot about it, you can research a lot about it, you love writing on those topics, and also you're comfortable with the questions in the last 5 years in that particular optional. So that should be the sole criteria of selection of the optional. I hope some clarity has been achieved by this video on optional, and we'll continue this series. So please subscribe if you have not subscribed, and you can also write in the comment section if there is something particular you want me to discuss about UPSC or any other exam, so I'll do it in a separate videos. So we'll end this video here, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.